Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Why is ignorance so persistent? When we were kids and we learned something, it sticks with us for a lifetime. The knowledge that we get later on doesn't stick, but coming back again and again. It has to do with what part of us is learning and understanding. Our patterns of behavior are actually coming mostly from our unconscious and our subconscious minds. Tragically, because the conscious mind is where we want to be. But most of us find that we slip, vast majority of the time. There's all sorts of different statistics, but none of them is very hopeful. There are things like 70% of the time, 80% of the time. I've heard 90% of the time. We're functioning basically on autopilot. Anybody get in the car to drive home from work? Mind is elsewhere, but you pull into the driveway, you have no idea how you got there. Right? Or you drive to a friend's house. Do your grocery shopping. Do all of these things that we do in our lives. And then you look back and you think, oh my God, I wasn't there. I mean, it happened. I did it. I drove home. I drove to the friends. I grocery shopped. But my mind was somewhere else the entire time. What is that? Well, they're behaviors that you've done so many times, they've gone into the subconscious. The first time you go somewhere, you better pay attention or you get lost. You couldn't get to a brand new place without being conscious. But the places we go every day, the roads we know, the things we keep doing, the habits we have, they very, very quickly become subconscious, which means that I'm on autopilot. My mind can be somewhere completely different, and I'll get myself home. Now, for things like driving your car home, that's actually good. Means you don't always have to pay attention to the left turn, the right turn. It means you can be chanting your mantra, you can be listening to kirtan, you can be listening to some beautiful lecture and not having to worry, where's my left turn? But the problem happens in the rest of our lives. Because in our interactions with other people, in our thought processes, in our behaviors, when we're only operating on autopilot, it means all we're doing is reenacting pretty much what someone else has fed into our system. And this is why that which happens in early childhood sticks. Because we know that neurologically, actually, for the first 5, 7, 10 years of life, the brain waves of a child are actually very, very similar to the brain waves when you're under hypnosis. So well, if you want to change a behavior or get into someone's subconscious or your own subconscious, right? There's a lot of people who practice hypnosis. And there's a lot of different aspects of this. How to get into the subconscious. Well, you have to change the brain waves. But the child's brain is actually automatically already in those brain waves. And that's why that which we learn, that which happens early in childhood, even if you can't consciously remember the situation or who told you or exactly how it happened, it may seem really fuzzy like a dream. But the impact is very strong because it has gone straight into that subconscious mind. And so we spend our lives operating based on that programming. It's like whatever, programs you feed into your computer, that's what you're gonna operate from. Whatever operating system you have that you or someone else has installed on the system, well, that's what you got. Every time you turn it on, that's what you get. If you've got an old operating system, old programs, your files will open in one way. You have a new operating system, new programs, your files will open in a different way. It's all about what's been programmed in there. And that's the same thing that happens in our brains. And that's why early childhood is so important. But then, all right, here we are, decades out of early childhood. We have our programs. Now what? As he says, okay, the ignorance from then, the ego from then, it sticks. Okay, but now what? So the dilemma becomes now, I grow, I enter a spiritual path, and I say, all right, I'm not the body. I'm not that identity. I'm soul. I'm divinity. I'm whole. I'm perfect. I'm all that. But who's telling me that? My conscious mind. So I've got my conscious mind trying to talk to my subconscious mind. And it doesn't work. And that's the dilemma. You cannot take the conscious mind and try to use it to convince the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind. And that's where so many people get so frustrated. You tell yourself over and over again, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to have patience. I'm going to be love. And then the next thing you know, before you even realize it, you're screaming at someone, you're throwing a temper tantrum. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. The next thing you know, you're halfway through a cigarette. You don't even remember how you got there. Because all of that is this subconscious programming. You didn't consciously decide, I know I'm going to break my vow and have a cigarette. You reached for a pack, you pulled it out, you lit it up, you weren't even aware, the same way you drove home without paying any attention. So there's two things to do. Number one, stay conscious. Because if I prevent my conscious mind from running away, and I stay present, stay conscious, as all of the different spiritual and religious traditions of the world keep reminding us to do, right? It's not just in India. So many of the different religions of the world have beautiful teachings, meditative teachings of awareness, consciousness, presence, meditation, mindfulness. Why? Because if my conscious mind is here, then I don't need to go on autopilot. It's like if the main pilot is alive and functioning and awake and sitting there, autopilot is not on. Autopilot only comes on when your main pilot has gone to the bathroom, or he's on his break, or he's gone to sleep, or he's had a heart attack, or he's been held hostage, or whatever it may be. That's why we have autopilot on airplanes, so that if the actual pilot has a heart attack mid-flight, the plane doesn't crash. So it's great in that way. But in our lives, it's also great for things like getting you home in the car, But it's not great for the rest of it. It's not great for that you want to be conscious about. Like what you do, what you say, how you live. And so the first and simplest, not easy. This is all very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. The first and simplest way is just stay conscious. Don't allow your subconscious mind to run away. Stay conscious. As we ground in the breath, as we ground in our mantras, as we ground in our practice of mindfulness, that's what it's about. All of these teachings of mindful walking, mindful eating, what's that about? It's about, can you do something as simple as put one foot in front of the other? Consciously. Can you chew your food? Consciously. Can you drink a glass of water? Consciously. It's amazing, we don't pay any attention. You pick it up, and I can drink it, my mind is somewhere else, and can I at least even swallow a sip of water without my mind running away? And so we have these practices to keep us mindful. Because if I'm conscious, then I don't slip into my old patterns. It's just my default way of being. But as long as I'm conscious, then I'm able to choose. It's like if I say to you, this is my favorite demonstration. If I say to you, okay, you've all got 30 seconds to get angry. Not outside, I'm not saying scream and yell, but inside you. Become as absolutely furious, rageful as you can. Okay? You've got 30 seconds on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Easy or hard? Okay? Hard, right? Why? Now, let's do this. Has anybody been angry in the last week? Raise your hand if you've been angry in the last week. I don't mean that you've punched a hole through a wall, but you've gotten angry about something. So we all know, we know what anger is. If I say to you, is there anything that makes you angry? Well, of course there is. And even if we are spiritual, awake people, even if it's not my in-law or my boss or my colleague or my neighbor, even if it's just world hunger should make us angry. The destruction of the rainforest should make us angry. Women dying in childbirth should make us angry, right? So anger is not necessarily something that means, oh, you're bad, you're wrong, you're unspiritual. So we all have things that if we thought about them, we realize, yeah, makes me angry that tens of thousands of children die every day of starvation. And yet, here's what the exercise demonstrates. Even though we have things that make us angry, you can't consciously become full of rage. You can be aware of what makes you angry. But you can't find that fury. Why? Because it requires unconsciousness. Anger comes. That fury comes. That punching through walls, hitting somebody, temper tantrum, screaming. That comes when I am not conscious in that moment. And this is why way number 1 is stay conscious. Wake up. If you've got to set something that buzzes on your phone or your wrist every 5 minutes to just a little bing to remind you to wake up, be conscious, come back, do it. This is why when we chant our mantras, when we do our japa and we have our mala, our beads, why? God doesn't need a string of Rudraksh. It's not that you need that to chant your mantra. The mantra is what's powerful. Why do we chant them on a string? It keeps you aware. It keeps you conscious. Reminds me, be here right now. So whatever tool, whatever technique you need, keep using them. The breath is a fantastic one. The breath keeps us conscious in every moment. Stay aware of the breath. Keeps you right here. And it keeps you from those subconscious patterns. Way number 2. Somewhat less simple, but very powerful. Change the subconscious programming. Okay? So way number 1 is just, it's there, but I'm not going to let it run my life because I'm going to stay so conscious that I don't need autopilot to come in. There's no room for autopilot to come in. Way number 2 is, I'm going to actually change that programming. But it's not going to happen through my conscious mind. And there's a lot of different techniques. Meditation is a very, very powerful technique because it is able to change us on a brain level, on a brain wave level that actually gets into the subconscious. Ritual is very powerful. Sit in the yagna ceremony as the mantras are being chanted. Engage in other rituals. The practice of ritual actually is something that has been shown to get us into a meditative, hypnotic, different state of brainwaves. There's also a lot of different types of techniques. Hypnosis is one of them. There's many that actually get you into the different brainwave patterns that change the way of your subconscious programming. Another very simple way, actually, is to just bombard the consciousness so much that ultimately it changes. So for example, but it has to be simple. So for example, if I move through the world, if my subconscious programming is I am stupid and worthless. So let's say that in my childhood, my parents or a teacher when I was young who I really loved and believed told me always, you're stupid, you're nothing, you're going to never become anything. If I was always made to stand in the corner in the dunce cap or whatever it was. And I spent my youth developing this pattern. I'm stupid, I'm worthless. I'm stupid, I'm worthless. Okay. So take 2 pads of sticky notes, literally dozens of them. Stick them all over your house, everywhere you turn. What is the opposite of stupid and worthless. Okay, there's not one right answer. You could use a lot of different words, but I am brilliant. I'm full. I'm whole. I am worthy. I am priceless. I am precious. I am divine. Whatever feels right, you'll know it. And then literally write it on dozens and dozens of these. It's not going to work if it's just one. One on your bathroom window or your bathroom mirror is just conscious mind. Yeah, that's my note. But if literally everywhere I turn, there is nothing but a sticky note telling me the message, it'll eventually go in. If every time I pick up my cell phone, that screen that comes, same message. If I set an alarm and it goes off every 30 minutes and gives me that message, it's going to go in. So there's a lot of different ways, but it can be changed. It's not that the programming of early childhood can't be changed. We just have to realize that you can't do it by trying to intellectually convince it that it's wrong. And this is where so many of us fail. So stay conscious as much as you can. But also, do as much as you can. Do them all. Do meditation. Do rituals. Plaster your house with sticky notes. Do whatever needs to be done. Oh, sweetie. Do whatever needs to be done to change that, and eventually it'll happen. Because it's not set in stone. It's just set in the subconscious. And ensure that all of the experiences you have that are the opposite of your programming are ones that you experience on every level of the being. So, you're sitting in the arti, or you're sitting in meditation, you're sitting in satsang, you're sitting on the banks of Ganga, you're in the arms of a loved one, whatever it may be. But an experience in which you are having a truth that is the exact opposite of what your subconscious says. So if your subconscious says, everybody hates me, and here you're having an experience of being loved. Your subconscious says, you're stupid and worthless, and you're having an experience of being one with the divine. Your subconscious says, you'll never be happy. You're having an experience of bliss. As you're having these experiences, make sure that you have them on every level of the being. What does it smell like? What are the sounds? What does it feel like? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it windy? Allow every aspect of your being to have that experience so that it sinks in and it changes you. Because if it's just in the mind, it'll be beautiful in that moment and then gone. But allow yourself to really experience those moments such that your truth changes. And this is how we change the brain. The brain is changeable. We now know that neurologically. Which means that because not only my conscious mind, but my subconscious, my unconscious, all of these patterns, they exist in my brain. They don't exist in some random, weird, obscure space in ether somewhere. They're not on some cloud. They don't exist outside your body. They're not locked up in, God's chest of people's subconscious issues. They sit in your brain. And so as we change our brain, we change our mind. We change the conscious, we change the subconscious, we change the unconscious. We have the capacity to change it all. We just have to work with it on different levels. And that's what all of these different techniques give us the opportunity to do, to access it and then to change it.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTImes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. In meditation, when you practice, we get to a place, the body settles, and the mind even settles. And you get to a place where you just seem to be right on a brink, an edge. There's just yet the experience is different for different people, of course, but as he said, just one more sheath, there's something just there. If you could just hold that and break through, then everything would open up. It'll happen. Here's the tragic dilemma of what happens to most of us. We're meditating. First, the mind is wandering. We bring it to a state of stillness. That stillness holds itself. Maybe we're meditating on a mantra or the breath, whatever it may be. But we get to that exquisite state of stillness. And then we get to a state of expansion. You start to lose that sense of outer versus inner, self versus other. Some people may see light. Some people may not. Doesn't matter. Nothing is right or wrong or higher or lower. But we all have our own version of that just beginning doorway into the exquisiteness. And then the mind goes, I'm almost there. Wow. So neat. And then what happens? Right? It's over. Then you start again. And then you get there, and then the mind says, oh, I wonder how long I can hold this. This is so great. I wish I could hold this forever. What happens? The presence of the thinking mind kicking in is actually what pulls you out of that experience. Because the thinking mind, in order to operate, needs something that is not it. So here's how the mind works. It holds the object it is thinking about at an arm's length. That's just how the mind functions. So maybe I'm doing a math problem. Maybe I'm balancing my checkbook. Maybe I'm looking at blueprints for a building we're going to construct. Maybe I'm looking at a project. I'm doing any one of innumerable things that I have to think about. I'm making a shopping list. I'm planning what to cook for dinner. Maybe I'm just judging the world that I walk through. Oh, this one's fat. He looks nice. Oh, God, what are they wearing? Maybe I'm just being judgmental. Whatever it may be. But the mind operates only in separation. It requires there to be something outside of it that it thinks about. Another person, a piece of pizza that I really want to eat but I shouldn't eat, a math problem, a checkbook, a bank account. Whatever it is, but it has to be separate from the mind. That's how it works. That shift that you're talking about in meditation is the shift from concentration to meditation, actually. It's actually the shift where you go. If you walk through the 8 limbs of yoga, but the 7 before samadhi, the first 7, it takes us slowly, go through our yamas and niyamas, how we live in the world. We use our body in asana. We use our breath in pranayama. And then it gets more subtle. And we withdraw the senses. We then take those withdrawn senses and we focus them on one point. That's the single-pointed concentration. Whether I'm using a mantra, whether I'm using a candle flame, whether I'm using one word, whether I'm using my breath, whatever it is, but I've taken my attention and I've put it on one thing. We call that meditation. But actually, if we were going to get really semantically picky about it, it isn't actually yet meditation. It's still single-pointed concentration. There is me, and there is the object upon which I am focused. A mantra, a word, my breath, an image. That moment you are talking about is the moment when we actually hit real dhyan. When that which I'm meditating upon, the meditator, actually become one. That's the real experience of meditation. And then, as that explodes into the bliss of oneness and ultimate union, it becomes samadhi. But here's where it gets tricky. The mind can do concentration. I can restrain my mind through practice, through willpower, on a single point. But in order for me to actually get into the meditation, to really touch meditation, for that curtain to open, that sheet to part, that I can't be in the mind. Because as long as there is something to think about, there isn't oneness. And so the minute the mind kicks in, it pulls me out of the experience I was having. And this is the dilemma. And this is where all you need to do, and you notice it. It's not that suddenly that thought comes out of nowhere, because you are in that state of acute awareness, heightened awareness. You know it's coming. You start to feel that little bubble of, I'm about to analyze where I am. I'm about to start to name this thing. It's starting to get so exciting that I just have to figure out what to call it. I just have to start to wonder if this is it. I have to be sure to remember it so that I can post about it later or tell somebody about it. Right? You actually are able to feel that bubble if you're really aware. So as you see that bubble, just draw the mind away from it. Bring it back. Whatever your technique of meditation that has brought you to that point, bring it back to that. Back to the breath, back to the mantra, whatever it may be. But don't let the mind get hooked in that bubble that's beginning of, oh, I wonder what this is. Oh, yeah, now it's happening. Oh, yeah. Just don't let the mind get hooked in that. And it's very subtle, and it's very gentle, and it's very soft. Because the minute that the mind hooks into anything, there's an other. And the minute there's an other, you've lost that moment. And so it just takes practice. Just takes practice. And slowly those bubbles will stop coming. But you have to let go of the ego's urge to know what to call it, to know whether this is, where this ranks on the ladder of enlightenment, right? So what stage am I at? I have people come in sometimes, what stage am I at? Well, if when you're meditating, the mind is wondering what stage I'm at, you're nowhere. Because you're not meditating. There's still a performer and a performance and an enjoyer of the performance, which is great along the way. Before we can have that ultimate stilling of the mind and the oneness, we have to develop that witness consciousness. In order to not be my fluctuating mind, to not be the thoughts, I first developed the ability to watch them. But ultimately you want to go beyond that. You want to go beyond just the show of the mind, because ultimately the mind stops. And if that part of my mind that watches is very identified in being the watcher, when suddenly there's nothing left to watch, it starts to jump, right? And it starts to be the one that says, oh yeah, this is it coming now. This must be the next stage. It's like a scene in a movie, or not in movies, but in plays. It gets dark, right? There was one act, now suddenly it's dark, they're changing the set, but you can't see it. And you just sit there in the dark and you wait, the next act is going to come. And that's what it starts to do. And it pulls you out. So you have to let go of any attachment to what stage am I at, where, and just be. Just exist. Whatever is supposed to happen will happen. And just merge into it. That's the time when you don't name, you don't analyze, you don't judge, you just are there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTImes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTImes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. Well, I assume that the path in question is the spiritual path. There's a lot of paths in life. But when we're talking about a spiritual path, there isn't one right way of getting there. If you want to walk the path to Delhi, it's simple. As long as you know Delhi is south, if you've got a compass, keep walking south. Eventually you're going to get there, or near there at least. But on a spiritual path, there isn't one way. There's innumerable ways. One of the dilemmas, in fact, comes with people thinking this is the only way, my way is the right way. There isn't one right way. As many people as there are walking spiritual paths, there's as many right ways. But so then, of course, how do you know? Because we know that the right way is not the way of ego. We know it's not the way of illusion or attachment. I mean, we know what's not the right way. So how do you know? You know by checking yourself every day and asking yourself, are you closer to where you wanted to get? And there are markers. Most of us think of markers as like, I'm halfway there. Or I finished, level 1, now I'm ready for level 2. Most of us think about it like that, and those markers, of course, don't exist. There is no level 1 or level 2. There is no halfway there. But what there are is ways of understanding that I'm getting closer. And so, for example, what we know is that walking on a spiritual path takes us away from, farther from, ignorance, darkness, right? When we pray, "Oh Lord, lead us," right? Asatoma sadgamaya. Lead us from untruth to truth. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya. From darkness to light. Mrityordma amritam gamaya. From death to immortality. Well, so there's the path. We are walking from darkness to light, from untruth to truth, from death to immortality. And of course, it's not about reverse aging. It's not about some cream or bottle or tonic or capsule or something like that. It's not even about some magic feat that's going to make your body live forever. It's about a shift in awareness from the self who is mortal, the self who is dying. All of us are dying. Regardless of how old you are, we're dying. Every moment we are a moment closer to death. That is a given. For some it may come quickly, for some it may be many, many decades away, but either way we are all dying in the body. And so death to immortality is about a shift in identification from that which is dying to that which was never born and will never die. And so to know you're on the right path is to ask yourself every day, is there more light? Is there more truth? And that's how you know. And there's very specific even indicators. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, what is a yogi like? What's a wise man like? What's the enlightened one like? And Lord Krishna gives him so many beautiful descriptions of what that person is like. That awakened one is like. How balanced they are. How in light they are. How courageous they are. How dharmic they are. I mean, there's all sorts of indicators in our lives. Little things are great indicators. How many times did you lose your temper today? How many times did you say something or do something that you later regretted? Because every time we do that, there's a part of our mind that says, oh, that wasn't me, right? When we say it in different ways, some of us literally say, that wasn't me. Sometimes we say, oh, I didn't mean that. Well, what did you mean? Like, you formed the words. You spoke the words. If it wasn't what you meant, how did it come out like that? Who was speaking if it wasn't what you meant? And what it means, all those times that we say or do something that we later say, oh my God, I don't know what overcame me, it wasn't me, I didn't mean it. What it means is in that moment, I wasn't conscious. In that moment, something other than my highest truth was operating this system. This system of my brain, of my tongue, of my lips, of my hands, of my legs. I was not conscious. So a very good marker of how you're doing on the path, is it the right path, is are you getting more conscious? Are there fewer moments in the day that you think, oh, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done that? Are there fewer things you regret? Another really good marker is, are there fewer things about other people that annoy you? At least on a deep level. Are there fewer things in the world based on how other people act and speak that make you really upset inside? Because the more times I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't be calm because of what someone else said or did, the less grounded in truth and light I am. The more identified with this temporary physical experience I am than with the eternal being I am. How many times do you ask yourself, as Puja Swamiji would say, what for me rather than what through me? So what are the questions that you ask the world or God? Are we always wondering what's in it for me? Or are we asking ourselves what can happen through me? And these are the markers on the path of knowing that it's right. If you're getting more and more in darkness. Because tragically, even if you think you're walking a spiritual path, it's not like the ego says, oh, you've decided to go spiritual? Okay, I'll just find someone else to bother. No problem. Nice knowing you. I'm out of here. The ego's still there. It's still playing its games. And when you say, now I'm walking the spiritual path, so the ego becomes the one who says that which you want to hear on the spiritual path. And so it tends to go one of two ways. Either the ego starts saying, we are so good. I'm so good. I'm so enlightened. I'm way more enlightened than this guy next to me. Way more enlightened than the lady in front of me. Wait, look, I'm so enlightened. I'm so humble. I'm definitely the most humble person in this room. So that's one way the ego goes. The other way the ego goes is we earnestly embark on the path. We commit to meditation. We commit to being transmitters of love and peace. And then our mind wanders. And we find ourselves 20 minutes later in Paris or London when we were supposed to be meditating, or we fall asleep, or we are overcome with boredom or sexual desire or whatever it may be. And the mind goes, see, you are useless. Told you would never be anything. You can't even meditate. Look at this. You are the only one. Everybody else is meditating so nicely. You are the only one sitting here thinking about pizza. You are worthless. You are stupid. You will never get anywhere. Or some variation thereof. So just because we've embarked on a spiritual path doesn't mean that the darkness throws in the towel or the ego throws in the towel. It's still there. We have to be really vigilant about it. So you're walking the right path when you're also aware of the games that the ego plays. And you notice them. And you bring them also into your awareness. And so it looks something like some variation of sound of a bird. Awareness on the breath, awareness on the breath. Smell of toast, awareness on the breath. Or my mantra, back in my meditation, awareness. You're stupid. Awareness on my breath. Awareness on my breath, my mantra. I want a muffin. Awareness on my breath, my mantra. So it's not that I push it away or yell at it or try to argue with it or debate it. But just like the sound of a bird has entered my awareness, and I bring the awareness back to the breath, back to the mantra. And the smell of something enters my awareness, but I bring it back. In the same way, one of these thoughts comes. But just as I don't hook my awareness into the sound of the bird or into the smell of the toast and lose my meditation, in the same way I don't hook it into that tape that's playing over and over and over again in our minds. So when you can do that, you're on the right path. And if you find that you can do it more this week than last week, you're on the right path. It's not an automatic or immediate thing. It doesn't happen overnight. We didn't get these patterns overnight. But slowly, 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 we rewire ourselves. We rewire how the brain works, how the thought patterns work, how the nervous system works. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTImes Radio.